Once again. So, hello and welcome, and we are here for the Transition Booster Safe Police Interactions Guidance for People with Disabilities and Their Families. Thank you to Erica Harris and Chris Perry for coming and helping us out with this presentation. Erica is my coworker at the UCED, and again, that's the University of Cincinnati Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. She's been working for the past 7 years, training families and officers about positive, safe interactions with the disability community. And Chris Perry is a senior program resource officer with the Amberley Village Police Department. He's retired from the Cincinnati Police Department with 26 years of service. He is an active peer support member that assists in critical incident stress management debriefs, as well as a mental health advocate and Alzheimer's Association volunteer. Currently, he conducts dementia training for first responders, classes for the public and all first responders. That's fantastic. Thank you both for joining us today. We appreciate it. And I'll let you take it away. I'm going to mute myself and take myself off the video so you guys can go for it.
Jenna, I just want to make sure, can you see my full screen?
Yes.
Sharing? Okay, it's just not highlighted green like it normally is. And I realized in the beginning that I wasn't sharing sound. So that's why you guys kind of saw me flipping back and forth. So I'm glad I caught that now rather than later.
Yes. Yeah.
So, okay. Thanks, Jenna.
Yeah.
So I'll go ahead and get started. As Jenna mentioned, my name is Erica Harris. I apologize. I am overcoming whatever this is. I feel better. I feel great. But for some reason, my voice is last to the party of being 100% well. So I apologize for my voice being a little bit in and out. But I'm excited today to be here with Chris to really talk specifically about safe police interactions and to provide some guidance for people with disabilities and their family members. The goal is really to share practical information that can help ensure safety and clear communication during encounters that individuals may have when they interact with police. So what we hope that you'll learn today, during our time together, we're gonna cover these key areas to help both individuals with disabilities and their family members. We're gonna provide some practical information that you can use right away. And we do have some time, sometimes in individual slides where you'll see some prompts for questions that we do welcome you to go ahead and unmute. Jenna's gonna keep an eye on the chat so that you can feel free to submit whatever questions that you may have along the way as well. What we want you to learn, we want you to understand why being prepared helps everyone. I feel like that's kind of a given that we all probably know, but obviously that's important to this topic. Learning some common challenges during police interactions and some useful tools that you can create at home, and knowing what your rights as an individual with a disability are, and some helpful resources, and then safety tips for different situations. For people with disabilities and their families, knowing what to expect in a police interaction can really make a big difference. When everyone understands what might happen, it's easier to stay calm and communicate clearly. And hopefully what we present to you today will help you prepare for those situations. So that means, knowing that police meet people every day. Good preparation helps everyone to stay calm. Understanding what to expect to reduce stress. I know often for me, when I'm training law enforcement officers, the idea is we just always go by, we are responding to a crisis. And for many people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, it's important to know that sometimes the arrival of police or the involvement of police may cause the actual crisis. So, there's that kind of that when one person tells the game of telephone, where someone recognizes something, they call and talk to the dispatcher talks to the law enforcement officer who's going to report and respond to the scene. Well, depending on how that communication gets relayed accurately or not, that person may not be in a crisis. They just may be having a behavior that is associated with their disability. And so, law enforcement showing up with the lights and the sounds and all of that may actually help kind of induce a crisis. Um, Knowing that planning makes communication easier and that safety comes first for everyone. So for the police officer, they are making sure that they are safe. For the individual who is in need of help or, on the other side of that interaction, making sure that they go home safe as well. So we're going to start with identifying a police officer. So when we think about what police look like or what they carry, we know that we typically see their uniform and their badge. That's always front and center, and they're typically always in uniforms. You may see handcuffs. I've worked with different police departments. They carry things in different places. Their weapon, they carry a gun, also may have a taser, a radio or microphone. Sometimes you may see a police dog, a canine, and officers may wear a body camera as well. So I would like to know, what else have you seen or know officers to carry that maybe isn't mentioned here or that you've seen? Feel free to unmute and respond or put it in the chat. Maybe I covered it all. The goal was for it to be an exhaustive list. So, Chris, did I miss anything?
No, I think you covered everything. But one of the things I would add is it's kind of the newer trend is like what I wear at work. I wear, the shirt I have on, a polo shirt and khakis, and usually my all my equipment is hidden. I travel pretty light. When I'm meeting people in a stressful time, I try and have my radio off. That's if I have somebody there, but yeah, I try and keep it as quiet and as calm as possible.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point to make, that I say the word uniform, but uniform can look different depending on the person and what their job is, and how what their police department requires of them. So thank you. That's a really good point. Not everybody's in the traditional blue or gray or black uniform. They may have a polo shirt. So
And Erica, Jennifer mentioned vests and headgear.
vests and headgear. We see a lot of headgear on, because we see police in on horses. We see them on motorcycles. So that's a good point. Thank you. Anyone else with thoughts on that? Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to see a video that showcases talking individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities actually talking with police. The videos that we're going to show as part of this are from our friends at the ARC of Northern Virginia, and so they're in Fairfax County. So you may see some reference to that, but in the context of the messaging, it really is applicable to everyone. But if they say, in Fairfax County, we do this, what I would do, I would urge everyone to check with your county and check with your local police departments to see what are they doing as it relates to what you see with Fairfax County.
Sometime when you're out in the community,
All
a
right.
police officer may approach you and ask to talk to you.
Hello. Hi, how are you doing today?
Good.
Hi, I'm Officer Chong with Fairfax County.
Police call this kind of conversation a community contact. It seems simple enough to talk to a police officer, but there are things you need to know and think about when you do.
Well, do you mind if I sit down and talk to you?
You need to know what to expect when a police officer approaches to talk to you. You need to understand how to stay safe by listening well and keeping your hands in plain sight. There are accommodations you can ask for if you need them to communicate and cooperate with the police officer.
A community contact can be many different things. It could be a suspicious person, someone that is wandering around, someone called in the police because they see someone acting differently or acting strange. That contact is the officer approaching that individual to establish, are you in need of anything? Are you okay?
Are you waiting on someone? No? Okay. Do you know where we are?
So the whole community contact is just relaying a relationship between the officer and the person.
The Fairfax County, Virginia Police Department offers practice sessions for families so they can experience and learn what to do during a police traffic stop. At the same time, people with disabilities can get a feel for the experience of talking to a police officer in the community.
Talking to police under any circumstances, whether it's a community or a traffic stop, at any time can be challenging, which is why it's so important to plan ahead.
I'm just going to ask you a few information, okay? Is that okay with you?
So keep in mind, once an officer approaches you on a contact stop, he's just mostly trying to relay to you that he is there to assist you or help you in whatever the situation may be. So it's highly encouraged that you talk to the officer, to at least let him know what's the problem and see if he or she can help you.
Though a police officer may be asking for ways to help you, they're also alert to anything you might do that could be perceived as a threat.
When we speak of a traffic stop, we think of someone in a vehicle. But when we speak of community contact, safety still is a main factor in this. That's why we always stress to individuals, keep your hands out instead of going in your pocket, because I don't know what's in your pocket that can harm me or you.
So police want to understand the issue that led them to approach you in the first place. So clear communication is critical. And if you need accommodations to hear, speak, or understand, let the police officer know right away. There are lots of different options depending on specifically what you need. Some accommodations might be speaking slowly, using simple vocabulary, talking louder or talking softer, making direct eye contact or not.
It's always good for an officer to either produce a piece of paper, maybe the individual can express himself in writing, or an officer feels he or she needs someone that can sign, we can get someone to do sign language. But we try our best to deal with the individual that we have there in the best that we can.
Having a card that has your name and describes your disability and anything you might need to interact effectively is really helpful, because in the moment, it might be difficult for you to say that out loud. So to have a card makes it easy for you, and it makes it easy for the person you're talking to, the officer in the situation. One good way to become comfortable with police officers is to introduce yourself to them when you see them. Maybe when you go down to the police station, you can go in and introduce yourself. It's a great idea. They would love to meet you.
Just keep in mind, we're all human. We all like to be greeted. So if you see an officer, say hello to an officer. Officer will say hello back to you. It's a mutual understanding that we are both here to serve each other.
All right.
Visit.
So now it's your turn. We would like to hear about anyone's experiences about talking with police officers. So whether there's really no wrong answer, anytime you've had a conversation related to yourself or a loved one, just in general, or it could be disability specific. You can unmute and share. Or you can put it in the chat. But I'm sure someone's had a conversation with a police officer.
So I can tell you a little bit about my interactions that my son has had. He has Down syndrome, and he has had an interaction with a police officer when he was at school. And he walked out of his class and walked out of the school. And so the police found him. But I will say he knew this police officer from seeing him around the building in the past. And so it was a very positive interaction. They talked to my son, they got down on his level, they actually sat on the grass together. The police, it was maybe a different situation than a police officer in another place, but because it was at school and outside of school, it was much more of it was on his level, I guess, is what I should say. And so it went very well. And my son just walked right back into school with them, and it all worked out in the end. But he can be an eloper. So, it was one of those situations where the police officer had to step in. But I think one of the nice things is when, because my son had interacted with him and other police officers in the past, he wasn't afraid of him, even though he's a very big guy, very tall, and has a lot of gear on. It seemed to, he's not like nervous around that particular gentleman or other police officers, actually. So, yeah.
Jenna, did you, when you talked with your son, did he share with you at all why he wasn't, I mean, I know you just kind of went over like why you think because he was familiar with him, but was there any reason because he had left the classroom why he also didn't try to get away from the officer?
Because, well, first of all, he only goes so far, so he wouldn't go out of the area that he doesn't know, because he would be scared to do that. So he was just going out to sit on a certain bench outside, really. So that was his place. But I did talk to him about this particular police officer. I will say there was another police officer that he did not warm up to as much. And this particular one, he does tend to warm to him every time we see him, because the police officer also engages with my son every time he sees him. So he gives him a fist pump, he smiles big, and they have a lot of positive interactions before they had to have this interaction where the police officer had to tell him essentially where to go and what to do. And so it became a little bit more of a serious situation in this incident. But before that, he had already had that trust between them. So I think that helped.
Good. Well, I'm glad that was a good experience. Thanks, Jenna. Anyone else would like to share a situation? Good or not great?
Shannon in the chat says, my personal experiences have been mostly positive, but always anxiety induced. I find that police in smaller communities where it is more likely to know others, community members are more capable of recognizing individuals with a mental health crisis or specific behavioral incidents. Shout out to St. Bernard PD for always answering these types of questions too. So that came from Shannon. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon. I think that makes a good point. I've lived in bigger cities. Right now I actually live in Sandusky, Ohio. So most of you probably know Cedar Point. And it's a small town. It's a small town. And small towns have their pros and their cons. But I think in the way of knowing one another and making connections, it's a lot easier than in bigger cities. I don't know, Chris, what do you think about that? Making personal connections with the police department.
So having worked in a big city and then working in Amberley Village, you definitely have more time to interact with the public and get closer to them through community events like we have in Amberley. I know the majority of the people, you know, that I know most of them by their first name,
Mhm.
but I think it's kind of a thing that all agencies need to embrace. And the more we meet, we spend time together, the better everybody's going to be. And as far as anxiety that comes with being stopped, 2 weeks ago I was stopped in Kentucky, and I've been a policeman for 31 years, and my pulse rate, you know, jumped, and I'm getting my wallet out, and my hands are shaking. It's just, you know, it just I think it happens to everybody. But I mean, I've probably done 2,000 traffic stops in my life, if not more, and here I am getting stopped, and I'm nervous. It's, you know.
Do you,
Yeah.
go ahead, Jenna. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna tell you what Rob had to say, but finish your conversation.
No. Go ahead. I was just gonna ask. I was gonna ask Chris if he got if he got a ticket.
No,
Oh.
no,
Did they
no.
let you off?
Yeah, he was friendly. It was like 7 miles an hour over the speed limit, and it went from a 55 to a 45.
Mm,
So doing his job. If he would have written the ticket, I earned it.
for sure. For sure. Go ahead, Jenna.
So, Rob just mentioned watching today with my two children. They both have had some interactions with school resource officers. I, on the other hand, have had a traffic stop or two. So thanks, Rob, for bringing your two kids into this
Yeah.
conversation too. That's fantastic. Glad to hear it.
Yes, thank you. And you know, there is a whole conversation to be had, and I know, Jenna, you know this, we've talked about it within our team about school resource officers. There's a lot of back and forth of, does training with school resource officers help or harm? And there are many people in the disability community that are on both sides of that. So it's something that I'm interested in. I'm a trainer. I train police officers. So I like to think and believe that training and information and education is helpful. Um, there has been information to support that it has been harmful, just because I don't know what type of education school resources or training school resource officers are receiving, but it is definitely something that I'm really interested in learning more about regarding their training, um, about interacting with people with IDD. So thanks, Rob.
More comments here, Erica, real quick. Wendy said, I see many in the small suburbs in Northeast Ohio have had people in the suburbs they live in to register. So they know you and your needs. So they're registering with the police departments. And yeah, we have that up where I live too. I'm in Westchester, Ohio, and we can register here. I'm not sure if that's the case everywhere. I know there is one area that does not have a registration. But I do believe that that can occur across other areas. Chris or Erica, do you know any more about that?
I don't know, other than I know sometimes there's just some inconsistency with the types of registration. With the different police departments I've talked to, they'll say we use X, and another one may say we use Y. But if you're in that community and you're registering, you're using the same registration system that your local police are using, I don't see that as a bad thing, for sure. Only if maybe you travel a lot and then maybe you're not in another person's registration. I would say that if you're frequenting other areas, to just make sure you're registered in those areas where you are the most.
On that note, hi everybody. I just wanted to mention there actually is a state law that is going through the Senate. It actually passed through the Senate, and it is now in the Ohio House. I believe they just actually wrapped up testimony on that. I believe it's actually a House Bill 144. I'll put that in the chat too if anybody's interested in looking into it. But it's House Bill 144, and I believe it just wrapped up through the Senate, or it will be wrapping up shortly. If it does pass through both houses, and then assuming it goes to the governor and the governor signs it, it is going to provide funding and the apparatus for a statewide registry. It is going to be, there was an emphasis on that it was a voluntary registry. I did provide proponent testimony for that, for both the House and the Senate. So it does establish a voluntary registry, which will be state accessible by any first responder agency statewide. So there is that is, but that's House Bill 144 is what that is called. So that is something that if it does, it will be a statewide thing, kind of to address that, is because that was what we found. Is I'm a career police officer as well, and I have a autistic son that's very severe and profound. He's one-on-one assistance 24/7. With pretty much everything. He's very smart, but he has very little, no sense of danger. So that presents its own problem. But yeah, the House Bill 144 is that if it's established, it will establish through. I believe it's going to be through the statewide leads, like law enforcement data system, to where it'll be accessible for that reason for anywhere in the state. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Justin, for sharing that. That would be awesome. That would be awesome. We'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Jennifer had mentioned my son has met police officers in community settings like parades, public spaces, with me or other caregivers only. We live in Louisville, and most of our districts have a very heavy loads. I'm former prosecutor and have worked with police officers statewide in Kentucky. So that's great. Wonderful, Jennifer. And then there seems to be in Hamilton County, Ohio, there is a Smart 911, and there's a link in the chat if anyone is interested in getting on there. And Jennifer had mentioned that there's an emergency services in Louisville to offer voluntary registration for persons at your home, but not sure if all first responders have access to that information. So, and then lots of thank yous for Justin. We appreciate it.
You're welcome. I did want to share very briefly while I'm thinking of it. I didn't want to interrupt since we're doing the questions. I volunteer with, like I said, I'm a police officer, but I volunteer with a nonprofit called ATAP. It's an Autism Awareness Training Acceptance Program. So we do offer, actually, I believe, I have spoke with a couple of you guys, different things, trainings, but I just wanted, I'll put the link to our page in the chat if anybody's interested. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We do first responder training and stuff as well. We also do safety. We will also work with agencies and organizations to do safety related thing for individuals of any ability level. It's not exclusive to just autism. It can be Down syndrome, intellectual disability. It can be, behavioral health conditions. But we'll work with the families either individually or in, a small group setting, whatever works better for that individual and that family. We also do like group homes and whatnot. We don't charge for anything that we do. Everything's donation based, but we do offer that anywhere in the state. And we are willing to travel, circumstantial as we can. But so I just wanted to mention that if there was anybody that might be potentially interested, we've trained around 1,400 first responders. Most of those have been in Ohio. So that is something that is out there. We've done everywhere from Columbus to the Plains, Ohio, which is a small community. I believe it's actually south of Columbus, but we're based out of Northeast Ohio, the Youngstown area. So, but we'll really go anywhere if anybody, if we can ever be of any help for anybody. We'll work with the individuals themselves as well as first responders.
Thanks, Justin. Justin, I know your name. I don't know if we've ever met, but I know we've been in the same places or same calls, but because I know your name. So thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome. Yeah, we've done quite a few different things. I think we're in the same realm and same goals.
For sure. Thank you. Jenna, do we have anything else in the chat?
It looks like that's it.
Okay, perfect. All right. I will continue to advance the slides, Chris, but I'm going to let you pick it up from here.
So the basic safety rules, things to do, keep your hands where officers can see them. I did that when I was on my traffic stop a couple weeks ago. Listen carefully to the instructions, stay calm and don't walk away. Tell officers if you have a disability. That's always been a huge thing for me, especially with people that were either hard of hearing or deaf, because you're walking up to the car, you have a radio in your ear, and I did a lot of stops on the interstate. You have the highway noise that clarifies things instantly. So now I have a way I can, tailor my approach to that. And the ways I would do it is go to the passenger side, I have them roll their window up on the driver's side. Now we can hear each other. It starts things off really well. Um, Things not to do, definitely don't run away. That automatically sets off all the bells and whistles for any policeman if they're trying to speak to you. Keep your hands away from their equipment. Another very important thing to mention. Don't argue or resist. The time, it's like I always try to explain this to people, the time to argue your point or your case is not on the street. You take that before a judge, stay calm and talk things out, and it's going to work out better for everybody. And then don't make any sudden movements. That's also going to alarm the officer there. So the ways to communicate, the ID cards are a fantastic thing, and kind of along with that, with the things that I do with the Alzheimer's Association, they have cards that say, for example, you're at a restaurant and your person with dementia does something inappropriate. People get upset, either staff at the restaurant or people there. You can hand them a card that says, my person has dementia or they have cognitive issues, and it instantly calms people down and lets them have a little bit of understanding as to what's going on. Is, this person isn't doing this intentionally. So any kind of card that can kind of relay information is fantastic, very helpful. Simple and clear words. Slang never helps, especially when, you're my age, because I can't keep up with it. So I don't exactly know what the slang words mean. Practice what to say beforehand. And, police officers do that same thing. I remember my first couple traffic stops, I was incredibly nervous. I wasn't sure what exactly I was going to say. So we practiced it multiple times. You're going to be able to stay calm when you already have something prepared. Pictures or phone apps that help communicate. I've used with Google Translate multiple times. That's helped a lot. Pictures, that helps. Having a support person, and then having that person's phone number readily available. So, I can get on my phone and call and get a better idea as to what's going on if the person can't relay that to me. And like I said, what I've used is the cards, the ID cards with specific information, and then, contact person's number that I can call and speak to them. That all has been very helpful.
Chris, when we think about having a support person, if a person is in a situation involved with a law enforcement officer and they have a support person that kind of is there with them, what advice do you have for the support person as you're engaging with the individual who may have the intellectual or developmental disability?
It's always worked for me when we put the phone on speaker. And if there's other people around, we'll kind of get them away from that scene where there's people that may be causing, trouble or being extremely loud, get them in a quieter place, and then put the phone on speaker so all three of us can engage in the conversation. Because when you start handing the phone back and forth, there's a whole lot that's lost.
Okay. All right.
So
How
just
about
make
in
it
person?
in person. The same thing, and if we can really get in a private place, walk into a business, a restaurant or something, and get away from the street, all the distractions, then we can slow everything down and work through all the details. And we have, times on our side then. So when making the ID cards, keep the information simple and clear. Name and disability. I know there's a stigma attached with so much of this, with mental health issues and with dementia, but your loved one's safety is so much more important than any stigma that exists. This really has been the best way that I've been able to communicate with people. and emergency contact numbers, things that might set you off. I've had plenty of people that do not like the police lights. I'm not a big fan of them myself because the newer versions are unbelievably bright. See if you can ask the officer if he can turn, either the front or the back lights off, because they now operate independently. So now you can have that where the person isn't squinting because the lights are flashing in their face. It's disorienting and it's distracting. So you're not going to be able to communicate as best as you could with those lights on. I don't know, the things that might upset you. There's so many things that can set somebody off. Like I don't like highway noise, so I'd always try and get on the other side of the car so I could deal with that. Turn my radio down, but always keeping that information with you is extremely important. And maybe you don't feel like talking. Maybe you're too upset. You can just produce the card, and they're the start of your communication.
And maybe it's also in the upcoming information, but just, I always want to stress to keep whatever additional card that you make with your driver's license. So that, the ID card here that we're talking about isn't in a separate place. So if your driver's license is in your wallet, that's where this card should be as well. Not separately in the glove compartment or the center console or some or in your bag, because that means that's a separate thing that the individual is going to be reaching for, and reaching for anything is never really a good thing when an officer has you pulled over or is approaching you. So the next slide is a video about traffic stops. So we're going to watch that.
Erica,
Yes.
to say Jennifer put in here that she's seen stickers for car windows alerting first responders that there's a disabled individual or a person with special needs on board. Where should that be located for a traffic stop?
I would like it to be where we're doing the Alzheimer's logo for people in Amberley Village and the other places that we teach this program, the dementia training for first responders. It's just a small, like the size of a quarter, just around the license plate somewhere. It doesn't have to be front and center. You're going to pull up on the car and you're going to be able to see that. And that's going to tip you off immediately that this doesn't mean it's exactly what I have going on, but I have a pretty good idea this may be the situation. So you're able to adapt.
I've never heard of a sticker. Someone say put a sticker on the actual license plate. It's always a window. I've never heard anyone say put on the window. It's the assumption that it should go on the window, where all the other stickers are.
I don't like that because, in Ohio we have the ice and snow. You can run a scraper over it, then it's probably going to be gone. But there's really nothing that's going to, distort the sticker if it's on the back of the car, either next to the license plate or, somewhere close where it's going to be really visible.
I had some families bring up that they were concerned like with stigma or whatnot, or even potentially, which I believe it's rare but not impossible, where they were concerned about even like being like targeted by like criminal or predator because of the disability. So what we suggested, we came up with, put our heads together, is a possibility if you're not comfortable putting it on the outside of the vehicle, or like you said, with exposure to the elements, you can put it, either somewhere by the seat, particularly where the individual, like with my son, we have the seatbelt. They make seatbelt covers as well. There's one called Help Belt that actually opens up and it has like where you can put like more information. So we recommend that one a lot. There's all kinds of different custom ones like on Etsy and different ones. You can get names, custom information. What we tell people, and when we give out stickers and whatnot, information things, we'll tell them that if they're not comfortable putting it on the outside of the vehicle, or maybe even in our case, we do both in the case of our vehicles personally. But we have it by my son has like a safety vest harness because he won't stay in a seat and whatnot. But there's one on there, and then we also can put it. We have one like on. We can't put it in his immediate reach because he'll rip it off. But we have it on the seat like direct opposite of him. So if there, God forbid, was a crash or whatever it may be, it's going to be visible, and it's in our case, it's visible. If the window's down or whatnot, the officers, we have tinted windows, but the officer can see, even just on the approach, and they're looking in the vehicle. Generally, in my experience, officers will look. I know I am, and then looking in the vehicle and you'll see it. But that's something if God forbid we're unconscious or whatnot, they're going to see it, inside the vehicle, but it's not as obvious, to the general public if it's not something you want the general public knowing.
And I think those are really good points, Justin. And you really talk a lot about visibility. I know I've been doing training for first responders for a long time also. And, there was a moment where I had a bunch of family members in the room. This was right before COVID. And we talked about that similar topic of notification and how do first responders know that a person, in a certain situation that may not be able to communicate has a certain type of disability and certain actions need to be taken. And in the moment that I was hearing what the families were saying, as you probably know, like in the disability community, I feel like there is such a strong effort put forth to identify people's loved ones for police and other first responders. And I heard a woman say, well, she was telling me about this bracelet that they had ordered for her son, and that he wears this bracelet and whatever. And so in the other part of this project that I was working on was working with first responders to say, like, how are we bridging, these two communities together? And I asked the question, I told them that story about the woman and her son with the bracelet. And I said, do you look for bracelets? And he said, no, we do not. And so while each, police department may be different, each first responder may be different, I've kind of paid attention to that over the years, to where all of the work that's being put in notifying and just having information to say this person has a disability. But there's lots of trainings. I've done some work with some 988 folks, and the importance of stressing, while we are training families and creating things for families to use for identification purposes, it's really important that we're having the first responders and the law enforcement officers and the fire department in the room also, or separately, to get that same information, to know that, hey, these stickers were created, or this is what we're telling the disability community to do. But if you're telling my neighbor how to put something on their car to get my attention, somebody should probably tell me too what I should be looking for on my neighbor's car. So sometimes there's that disconnect of, we're doing all this advocacy work in the disability community, but we're not telling the first responders, who are juggling many other things besides disability, and in the interactions that they have. So, I love the idea of, like, what you were saying with, like, making things extremely visible. But I always, I just wanted to bring to this group the idea that as we advocate in the disability community, that we're bringing the first responders and the police department to the table in some way, shape, or form, to say, this is what we're doing. So if you see this, this is what it means. So I just wanted to just add that. Chris, did you have any thoughts?
That's just, one of the things with the dementia training for for first responders is we show the logo, and that this is something that's going to be coming out, so everybody is aware of it. But I agree with what you said, that there's been so many times over the years where people would be putting something out, it's really good, but we were never informed, so we have no idea what that insignia means. But, it's just another example of communication being, a key thing for all of us.
Mm-hmm. All right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and play the traffic stops video. All right. I'm trying to get the captioning to work, but it is not working. I so apologize.
When you see a police car's flashing lights behind you, being nervous is natural. It can be worse if you can't hear clearly or communicate by speaking, if you have a physical disability, or if you're driving with someone whose behavior can be unpredictable. It's important to know what's expected of you as a driver. And it's also important to know that police officers are expected to adjust their approach to take disabilities into account. Understanding how traffic stop accommodations work will help. You can expect every traffic stop to involve following basic steps that help ensure good communication and safety. There are several kinds of accommodations you can ask for to allow you to cooperate fully and safely in a traffic stop. And you can ask for help from officers trained in crisis intervention techniques. The Fairfax County, Virginia Police Department holds practice sessions for drivers and their families so they can experience what a traffic stop is like. It's a calm and safe environment, but on the street, it's not always that way.
A traffic stop is considered a dangerous portion of our job because it's the unknown. You walk up to a vehicle, you don't know what's in the vehicle, what could happen during that traffic stop. It's that dangerous time of not knowing what's going to happen.
Good afternoon, I'm Officer Wilkins with the Fairfax County Police Department. So the reason why I pulled you over is because you ran the stop sign back there. Did you realize it?
Safety is paramount in our profession, for you, the driver, and for the officer. So if there's an issue, we can work through that issue so that we all can go home safely at the end of the day. But if we don't know what that safety issue is or what the problem or connection is, we need to start a dialogue and a conversation about what is your problem, what is the condition that you had that may cause you or me to behave a certain way.
Think about it from the perspective of the police officer walking up to your car in traffic. You have to be able, they have to know what to expect. And the only way they're going to know is if you tell them. So they need to know right away if you need something different to communicate, or that, you know, if there's behavior that they're not expecting, they need to understand why that's happening. And so you need to tell them.
And so part of the equation in traffic stop safety is for drivers to know what to expect so they can help police officers know what to expect.
If a driver's going to be pulled over, we want you to try to remain calm. Pull over to a safe location. Keep in mind, if the location that you're trying to pull over to is not a safe location, put on your flashers, letting the officer know, yes, I see you behind me, and I'm going to pull over someplace where it's safer. Put the vehicle in park. Turn the radio down your window. If it's nighttime, turn the dome light on inside the vehicle, which will illuminate the inside of the vehicle to allow the officer to see that there's no threat in the vehicle. Put your hands on the steering wheel. Wait till the officer comes to your vehicle, approach you, and ask for what he or she wants from you.
You have your license and registration? Can I see that, please?
Try to have an idea where your registration, where your driver's license is located. Having a card saying, I have this condition, I may react this way, is very beneficial to one, the driver, and to the officer. So if he or she has something like that, it's very nice to present it when you present your license and registration.
So knowing what to expect during a traffic stop can help you plan ahead, and planning ahead can help you prepare, and you'll be calmer in the circumstance, which is critical for your safety and for the officer's safety.
Police officers can offer a range of accommodations, such as using pencil and paper or requesting a sign language interpreter. A driver might ask an officer to speak slowly, repeat instructions, and use simpler words. It's okay to ask for a chance to calm down people in your car, especially if the behavior could be disruptive or concerning to the officer. Some officers travel with comfort kits.
We may arrive with a comfort kit, a kit that is designed to help de-escalate, make that individual feel calm, to give them something else to think about versus the fear of the officer being there. So we're trying to work together to de-escalate and make everybody safe and calm so we can figure out what's the best course of action for the individual.
Police officers are trained to handle a broad range of circumstances, but sometimes a situation calls for specially trained officers.
As a parent or as a driver, you understand the condition that you're under and the pressure you're under. If you feel that there come a point in time that you're feeling overwhelmed, you may request through the officer, hey, can you call out someone that is a CIT officer that can help in this situation?
Naisha called 911 from her car when her son's behavior became unmanageable and dangerous.
I specifically asked for a CIT officer, crisis intervention team trained officer, because I wanted to make sure that they were well equipped to be able to handle that particular situation.
The driver of a car isn't the only person who can feel extra help is needed.
The officer will try his best to try to de-escalate the situation, but if he or she feels it's overwhelming for them as well, he or she may make the call to dispatch to have someone come out to assist.
Nobody looks forward to a traffic stop. They're stressful under any circumstances. So planning ahead is critical, and it really helps a lot.
All right. So now, is anyone able to tell us about any traffic stop experiences that you've had with law enforcement, disability related, or not? I know we talked a little bit. Chris shared his experience. How about anybody else?
So Justin had mentioned in the chat that he had a traffic crash with a diabetic who was unresponsive. And she had an ID alert card behind her license that she was diabetic, and it helped them get the proper medical care sooner. And he was able to give her some sugar in the meantime. So that was relating to the fact that you asked to put the two cards together and in the same place, and he was agreeing with that. That was great. He mentioned that that was a great point. And then he asked Chris if there's something that can be replicated or used by other outside of your community for the dementia logo.
If he would like to contact me by my email, that'll be at the end of this. He can do that, and then we can exchange phone numbers, and I'll fill him in about everything that we have going on.
Yeah, sounds great. Perfect.
Anyone else in the chat, Jenna?
I had a quick question. This is Jennifer. I had a quick question for Chris. In terms of like the video and the real world experience, does the flashing lights really help a police officer understand that you're trying to find a safe space to pull over? I've had an occasion, the police weren't involved, but I had an occasion where my son was involved in a traffic stop as a result of a car breakdown. And it was very, very difficult to get him into the other vehicle that came along to pick up the passengers because of the location of where things broke down. So that I just wanted to make sure that that's in real world that would be acceptable.
I think it's great. So kind of related to that is I have told my wife, in Ohio, we don't have cars that are working, traffic that are unmarked. And I told my wife if she sees somebody that tries to stop her and they have an unmarked car, there's no police department listed on the car or anything. I told her, I said, call 911 and tell them that you're being stopped and you're going to continue on until you know that it's safe. I don't think there's any problem with that. I wouldn't ever ask anybody to stop in a dangerous location. So, if you have to drive down the interstate a quarter mile to get to an area where there's a wide berm, I don't see any problem with that at all. I would actually appreciate that because now I'm safer as well.
I think, Jennifer, you make a good point of, kind of what I mentioned earlier with, is the communication going both ways? Of we're telling one group of people to do this, but does the other group know that that's what's being shared? So when you make the question of, okay, in the real world, or I've seen this, or people are saying this, like even for us, for that matter, that's why it's great having Chris on the call, today to ask the questions like, does this really work? Is this really what you want us to do? Because if I put on my hazards and I'm driving to find a safe place, am I now in further trouble because I didn't pull over right away? So I think that's a really good question.
All I'm looking for is somebody to acknowledge that, that I'm trying to stop them. It's way different when you see somebody turn on their hazards and start to move over to the side than somebody that just rapidly accelerates away from you. I mean, you pretty much know what that's going to be. But as long as somebody acknowledges, the traffic stop, that's all I'm looking for.
All right, thanks. Go to the next slide. Chris, do you want to go ahead and just continue with traffic stops, and then I'll pick up the next section?
Sure. So if you drive, just practice what you're going to do if you get stopped. A huge part of that is when I walk up to the car, I have no idea what's inside that car. I'm thinking about the traffic that's behind me and beside me. If you can keep your hands on the steering wheel where I can see them, it helps me tremendously. Like they said in the video, having the dome light on, every light on in the car that you can have, hands clearly visible, makes me feel much safer when I approach the car. Have your ID card ready. Like I said, when I was stopped a couple weeks ago, I had everything in my hands on the steering wheel with all my information right here. And I had actually pulled as far off the road as I could. And it was a really smooth traffic stop, and one of the things I see when you have people that have really dark tint on their windows and they roll it down like maybe a quarter of the way, that doesn't do anything to make me feel safe about that. So, just roll them down all the way, get the windows down. And I think, I don't know what the legal issue would be about adding disability information to your DMV record, but it would be really nice if when you ran the plate, it came back with that. I myself wouldn't have any problem with that. I know some people might, but yeah, that is very helpful.
And, when we think about, most likely more, you guys have all heard about ADA, who are on this call. And so when we think about how does ADA, connect to what we're talking about today, it's just simply that you have rights, and those rights apply to, when you're interacting with police. And on the training side of it, law enforcement, are also hopefully being, I say hopefully because it's not mandatory, being trained on the ADA and how it applies to their interaction, whether it be in the jail or, just in the community. But for individuals with disabilities, you can ask for reasonable help. That looks like asking officers to speak slowly, requesting written instructions, asking to call a support person, or asking for a specially trained officer. So you saw in the video, they mentioned a CIT officer, which I'm going to let Chris talk about that in the next slide, but that's what that refers to. Crisis intervention teams, the T stands for teams, but it is a specific training that individuals, law enforcement officers go through. So just knowing that the ADA still applies to you, even though you're interacting with a member of law enforcement, that doesn't go away just because it's a police officer. All right, and Chris, can you talk a little bit about what CIT is and how that applies to our topic?
Sure. It's the crisis intervention team, and it seems like to a lot of people this is something new, but I keep going back when I started. This is what you just did anyway, just by being a good person. I was in a situation on the suspension bridge. A man was underneath the bridge on the catwalk and he was threatening to jump. I laid down on the grates of the suspension bridge and we spoke for about an hour. And I was able to address him in a way that made him feel comfortable. And it's just slowing things down if you can. Slowing things down, being human, being understanding. And when you get somebody that's been through CIT training, it makes a huge difference as to how this situation is going to play out, because you understand the why behind the behavior. And if you don't know why this is happening, then you think it can be just a slew of different things. But once you are trained and you see the signs, you see how this person's behaving, how they're, one of the things I look for is the breathing and where they're breathing from. Is it belly breathing, or is it, quick breaths through, the upper chest? And I can see that they're wound up and stressed, and we just calm things down. And I wish we would have had this, 30 plus years ago. Would have made a huge difference. But there's a huge push for this, and I think the younger generation of police officers have really bought into this, and they've been basically raised in it. So I think your chances of having a CIT officer around are really good.
Thank you. Do we have any questions before we go into the calling 911 section? In the chat or otherwise?
I was sorry, I'm a slow typer. I was trying to type it on there too, but I know that something we've started doing from talking to officers and families is when doing these trainings and outreach things is that we've started recommending asking, like, if it's a dispatch call where you're specifically asking for an officer that's maybe CIT trained. We've started suggesting, like, saying like CIT focused or CIT trained and focused, or just something along those lines. We found that a lot of times then it kind of clicks more, particularly in big cities, where a lot of times the training will be, the officers will be voluntold to go to the training and not necessarily is dedicated to it or is interested. And if that's the case, they may not be as efficient or as knowledgeable with it. They may not have retained as much information with that training. So we've started recommending, if you say, focused or something along those lines, a lot of times even from talking to dispatchers, it will kind of like click to them because, the dispatchers have 100 things going on as well, typically. And then that way, it's probably going to be more likely from everybody we've talked to that you get an officer that maybe has more of an interest in it or a more understanding, probably like from the sound of it, like Chris or myself, or maybe somebody that has a family member that's, like in my case with my son, that's more involved with it. And then, it's going to sound, and if it's asked like that, like I said, a lot of times, we even dispatchers say that, they just say CIT trained. That doesn't, it may not register to the dispatchers. But if you say something like focused or something in addition to that, or instead of that, it kind of, is not the typical response. So it kind of snaps them out of their routine, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Justin. Yeah, the voluntold versus the volunteer. That's I get it. I've been fortunate enough. My trainings people are volunteers. So but I get what you're saying. You're gonna retain it when you can apply it and when it is relevant to you. So thank you for that, Justin.
Somebody
right.
put in the chat that they had a question. So it said, you said that you can have someone for a support person. I had another parent tell me that the police wouldn't let them talk because they weren't the person who was driving. How do you handle that if you are the person in the car as a support person?
Well, first off, I don't approve of the way the officer did that. If somebody had some information they wanted to relay to me, I would absolutely listen to that. I would ask a couple times, just remain calm and say, please, I know this person very well. I know what sets them off. I know what the issue is. Can I please just address it with you? And just be direct, be polite, and see where it goes from there.
Yeah, that's kind of the point I was getting at too when I asked, like, when they're in person, because I think officers tend to want people to back away and focus only on the person that they're interacting with. Obviously, if it's in a car situation, that's different, but just no, I think that first step of establishing that there is a disability present for this person, then the acknowledgement that a support person can be helpful if they are being helpful. Do we have anyone else, Jenna?
Just one more, Jennifer just put in for general information, the ARC of the US is working directly with the International Association of Chiefs of Police to develop better training opportunities for law enforcement. Happy to share the links with the moderators, so she can.
Yeah, and I'll add, I actually am a consultant to the ARC's National Center on Criminal Justice and Disability, and I am part of that partnership. And I'm one of the co-authors of the Crisis Response and Intervention Training curriculum that we've created over the past 4 years. So I'm happy to hear that people know about it. Happy that you are knowing and sharing it. So thank you for that very much. But yes, just to expand on that a little bit, CRIT, so there's CIT and then CRIT. CRIT is an actual curriculum, and we are CIT International, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the ARC, the University of Cincinnati, and National Policing Institute are all partners on this grant from the Bureau of Justice Assistance to create a curriculum that is still based off the Memphis model of CIT, but enhances and integrates IDD throughout 18 modules of the training. So it is the training curriculum that CIT International is proposing be used as the training piece of CIT team training. So I know it's a lot of T's, but thank you for bringing that up. If anyone has questions, I'm happy to answer that or follow up after the call. Anyone else?
Justin just said a lot of CIT has very little focus on IDD.
Hence the creation of CRIT.
Good.
It's
All
good
right,
to know that they recognized it. It's good to know that it's been recognized, and I'm thrilled to be part of anything that incorporates more of IDD into CIT. I'm going to share a little funny story with you guys. About a week ago, I was at the airport boarding a plane to attend a co-responder conference to talk about CRIT. We call it CRIT. To talk about CRIT in CIT. As I'm sitting at the airport, I get an email from someone in Lucas County who is coordinating their CIT training. She somehow in a roundabout way got my information, and she said, Erica, I was giving your information to help do an IDD, to help do a session on IDD and legal issues. And she said, I ended up reaching out to CIT International, and they sent me the following slides, or the attached slides. So I open up the slides, and the slides are CRIT slides that I helped create. So it was a full circle moment that that this person who didn't know me and didn't know CRIT was contacted, talked to CIT International and was given the CRIT slides, and then ended up with me being the one doing the training. So on Monday, I'm doing that segment for them. So it's nice that the circle of CRIT is getting smaller, or not getting smaller, but it's not so far out there. It's more known. All right. I'm going to go ahead and play the video for calling 911.
At some time in your life, you might need to make an emergency call using 911. If that happens, you might be scared or nervous or upset. That's why it's good to be prepared. This video will show you how a 911 call is your chance to ask for the help and accommodations you need. You'll learn what to do when you call 911 and what to expect while you're on the phone.
Everybody's different and may need something different to communicate effectively. So think about it from the perspective of the responder, the 911 operator. They need to know exactly what you need to communicate effectively, and they're going to relay that to the responder. There are many different options that you can request when speaking to the 911 operator, including turning sirens off and flashing lights as you approach the house, speaking slowly, using simple vocabulary, talking louder or talking softer, making direct eye contact or not. There are lots of different options. You have to consider what works best for you and then be able to speak up for yourself and say that so that they know what you need.
Connor Cummings had a real-life emergency when his mother hurt herself and fainted. He and his mom show the steps he followed, so you'll know what to do too.
So we were in the basement, I fainted, came upstairs and called 911, and he followed the plan.
911, where is your emergency?
I live at 5555 Belize Street, Fairfax, Virginia, and then Union Townhouse.
What's going on? Tell me exactly what happened.
My mom needs help. She got hurt by a big wood piece falling off her wall, and she fell to the floor and fainted.
We had a plan written for him that talks about what he needs to do when he calls 911, opens the door, does all of these things. He was able to do it because we had a plan. I was in tears with pride with him. It is something that we go and I share with families so that they will do the same, because that's how important I think it is.
911 calls are answered by operators trained to ask for and get the information needed for police, fire, and emergency medical responders. You can be ready for the call if you have a written script with important information on it.
Have a 911 script handy at home, maybe by your phone, and that would include the number to dial, 911. It would also, most importantly, include your address, your phone number, a little bit about yourself, to include maybe your disability, and maybe some information about your household members. If someone has a history of chest pains or heart problems, it's always helpful to have that information too.
There are a few things to keep in mind if you have to call 911. When Connor called, he called from a landline phone. He had his 911 script near the phone so he could read it. He gave his address right away. He talked calmly, even though he felt nervous. He stayed on the line and answered questions from the 911 operator. Here's more from Michelle Anderson.
Please use the phone that you're most comfortable with, if that's your house phone or your cell phone. Keep in mind that when you're calling from your house phone, we have a better address. We always suggest and recommend that you call 911, but if you're unable to, you can always text to us. We do not get images or photos at this time, but our call takers are set up to take your text call also. In the 911 center and the call center, we handle each call with the utmost care. We ask a lot of questions because we're gathering as much information as we can. We want those first responders to know as much as possible when they arrive to help you. Another key thing to keep in mind is while we are talking and I am asking you questions, help is on the way. So I don't want you to ever think that there is a delay or a response while we are talking and I'm asking questions. The other key things to remember when calling 911 is to remain calm. Do not hang up until we give you permission to do so. Sometimes with certain calls, we will stay on the phone until help is with you.
For some people, talking to a 911 operator is impossible. Ben uses a letterboard to spell words to communicate with others.
When you call and maybe you're not able to talk clearly, we're going to continue to stay on the phone and probably ask you the same questions, maybe several times, seeing if we can pick up a little bit more. We can also, and have in the past, asked yes/no questions to solicit some type of a response, or even using the keypad to ask a question and you can press a key for yes. If we believe you're in crisis or that there is an emergency, or maybe we can't get the full information, we're going to start somebody out to your house to check on you.
Emergencies can happen anywhere. Naisha called 911 from her car when her son's behavior became unmanageable and dangerous.
And part of the challenge was in that type of situation, I didn't necessarily, I felt flustered and it was hard to, even as a parent, be able to communicate effectively when you're struggling with your own sense of emotion.
Everyone who calls is nervous or is nervous in some fashion. Maybe it's their first time calling. Maybe what they're seeing and experiencing is scary. So we'll give you prompts to take a deep breath, maybe slow down what you're saying. But everybody gets nervous, and we're trained to work with that.
When the police arrived to help Naisha, they already had a good idea of what to expect because of what she told the 911 operator.
They were definitely prepped with, knowing, the nature of the situation. I also had asked for CIT certified, crisis intervention team certified professionals, just to make sure that they were well equipped, to be able to handle that type of situation. So I did ask for that in advance.
Naisha's call was one in a broad range of calls 911 operators receive every day.
We deal with all types of people that call. We deal with young children, with elderly people who are maybe confused. We deal with people with disabilities. We deal with people that are in crisis. So we just want you to know that we are going to handle your call with the utmost care. So be patient and stay on the phone and answer all of our questions.
And by the way, here's something you might need to know if you're practicing your 911 plans.
People do call 911 by accident. Sometimes it's somebody playing with the phone. Sometimes it's just a misdial. If you call 911 by accident, please just remain on the phone and tell us it's an accident.
There are additional things you can do to prepare in advance. You can visit your local police department and fire department. You can set up a profile with your police department. You can set up emergency contacts in your phone. And if you don't know how to do that, you can ask somebody who can help you. Remember, the help you need will be unique to you. It is really important that you be prepared and that you practice.
Visit
Great.
the
So for the sake of time, I still would like to, entertain this slide where you tell us a little bit about whatever your experience has been calling 911. So if you do have an experience, if you could put that in the chat. I'm just going to move along in the slide deck to make sure that we're able to wrap up on time. But go ahead and put that in there, and then we can address that at the end with the Q&A. So when we think about making emergency calls, I think that video did a really good job of, kind of breaking down if you need to call 911, making sure that you mention your disability early in the call. Practice giving your address and explaining your situation clearly. They mentioned having it listed on the wall. And I know very few of us have a landline anymore. A lot of us still held on to the landline with our cell phones, but now we see them fewer and fewer. But just making sure that the information is available somewhere, because when we are in a panic or in an emergency, sometimes individuals may not remember their address. And also back to practicing explaining your disability or how to talk about it in a clear way will be helpful when calling 911. Staying on the phone helps the emergency operators help you better, and family can practice making these calls together, and then just making sure that you're waiting in a safe place when you do call 911. If someone calls 911 about you as a person with a disability, so the police show up and now you're maybe in a situation where you have to answer for some behavior that maybe triggered someone to call the police. Stay calm, because just because the police are there doesn't mean that that anything bad is going to happen. Show them your ID card if you have one. So both of those ID cards that we've been talking about. Tell them about your disability. So that's why practicing this is very useful, because just the police presence is probably going to make you nervous. Ask to call your support person. So you see this comes after telling them about your disability. So let them know that I do have someone that supports me. Can I call them? Can I call my mom? Just saying, can I call Katie, might need a little bit more context to say, explaining who Katie is. And remember your rights. We talked about those with the Americans with Disabilities Act. If an arrest happens, remember your basic rights again. You don't have to answer questions beyond identifying yourself. So what is your name? You can ask for a lawyer. It's important to tell officers about your disability again, and then follow following directions helps keep everyone safe. Making sure that you're, again, pretty much everything that you would do in the interaction with an officer, you would do again if you are arrested, with the included part of staying silent and asking for a lawyer. The video talks about making a plan. So if there is, this speaks to just kind of emergency preparedness in general, but, thinking about what do you do if you are in this situation? So most of, I've done a lot of training, emergency preparedness for people with disabilities and their caregivers. This session is, for people with disabilities and their families. So it's always going to be about making a plan and having a support system throughout any process. Practicing what to say. Are the ID cards made? Keep them handy. Are they updated? Knowing who are your emergency contacts, and, reviewing your plan regularly because things change. Support people may change. Diagnosis may fluctuate. Different accommodations may be necessary. So making sure that that information is always updated. And then again, if you've made any plans, share those in the chat so that we can talk about those at the end. So finding some help, if you find that you've been involved with law enforcement, you want to know more about law enforcement, you have questions, interact with your local disability groups. If you have an ARC chapter, if you have a county board of developmental disabilities, or many other organizations that are out there that are advocacy organizations for people with disabilities. There are police community programs, if those are available in your area, getting involved in those. In the disability world, we say nothing about us without us. So it's important that we're showing up, that when there are committees and coalitions and things like that for your city or your community, especially with law enforcement involvement, show up and be at those tables just as adamantly as we live in our normal advocacy lives. Emergency notification systems. So you heard Justin talk about the bill that's being passed. So make sure that even though things are voluntary, that you get your information in there. And then again, looking for other support groups for families. So family support groups as opposed to, or, in addition to individual support groups. Some prevention tips. So to prevent any conflict with between law enforcement and individuals with IDD, get to know the officers in your community. And I talked about, both sides being on the same page. We talked about officers to get to know their community. We call it community policing. Getting out there, getting to know everyone in your community. And when you know everyone as best you can in your community, you're going to know who may have, disabilities or different circumstances in their life. Join community events that involve police. So when I know where I live in Sandusky, I, follow the local police pages and they have community events. They may not be police related, but if the police department is hosting an egg hunt or whatever, or just a biking, a bike race or something, show up, be involved. Consider wearing medical alert jewelry. Medical alert jewelry does seem to be more recognized by law enforcement. Sign up for any special needs registries if they are available, and practice your communication skills. Again, interacting with the law enforcement officer is likely to make us all stressed out or panicked or our anxiety rise. So if we practice things, it comes out a little bit smoother or easier. Some things to remember: preparation helps everyone stay safe. Everybody wants to go home safe at the end of the day. Communication is important. Communication with each other, communication with your family, communication with your community. Know your rights. We talked about the ADA. Practice helps build your confidence, and know that support is available. So if I always say at times like this, if you didn't know anybody, now you know me and Chris. So you're going to have our contact information. And if we can't help you, we can definitely direct you to someone that can, especially someone that may be local to your community. So with that, if anyone wants to share any ask any questions, or Jenna, if there are any responses to those question prompts in the chat, just let me know.
Yeah, there are a couple of questions actually. So Jennifer says, my son is non-speaking and hearing impaired. He uses an iPad with an AAC app to communicate. He has 911 access if connected to Wi-Fi, but he probably couldn't stay in the line and use his app to communicate. Are there apps that could help him send a pre-drafted or recorded message in case of an emergency?
Jenna, I would actually probably ask you that question. Or Chris, if you know, but I'd probably ask you that question, Jenna.
Yeah, I'm curious what AAC app he has, because my son's AAC app that he uses, which is Touch Chat, we can actually record his voice, and make a button that records his voice, or records what we want it to say, for him, and all he has to do is push that button. So depending on what AAC app your son uses, it may just be creating a button that you can record that pre-drafted message that you're talking about. So that's what we have for my son. So I'm not sure if that would work for you, Jennifer.
Thank you for this. Thank you for
I'm
the
sorry.
suggestion. Sorry, we use a different app called Proloquo to go, but I'd have to look at the suite of services offered within that to see if they offer something similar. But that's a good suggestion. Thank you.
Yeah, and I do think Proloquo also has that. So yeah, so please look into that. And if you need me to send, I'll put my information in the chat as well, my email address, and you're welcome to reach out to me. And I can send you the information of how to set that up on Proloquo as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenna.
There's just one more question. Janet says, my son also has a hearing impairment. Have you looked into the Nagish app? I haven't ever heard of that. Is that how you pronounce it, Janet?
It's called Nagish. Yeah.
Oh, Nagish.
And yeah, it's fairly new, and we came across it through the Deaf Services Center in terms of phone use, because sometimes my son is hard to understand. So you can actually, they can type into it, and then it turns what they type into a voice. So the person on the other end doesn't have to have, texting enabled. It's pretty good for a lot of people that are deaf and hard of hearing. It gives them a lot of flexibility. You don't have to use the voice, but you can use the voice. And as I said, you can text and it will turn it into a voice, either a male or female voice. So yeah, it's something I think that may be useful for people that have hearing issues.
Great. Love learning about this. This is great. And that's all we have in the chat.
Okay. And I went ahead and advanced to our contact information. Jenna, you said you were putting yours in the chat. Is that right?
I did. Yep.
Okay.
And I put yours in there too, actually, so they can just copy and paste if they wanted to.
Perfect. Okay. Chris, did you have anything to add before we hop off?
Just for anybody that wants to contact me, feel free to contact me at that cperry@amberleyvillage.org. I'd be more than happy to help in any way that I can and answer any questions.
Definitely. All right. With that, I apologize. We are over 5 minutes. But this was really great. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us. And please reach out if you have any other questions.
Yeah, and I just wanted to thank everyone for attending as well. And wanted to let you know that our next transition booster session is going to be on Thursday, August 14th. It is preparing students for life after school, writing meaningful goals in the IEP. So that is what our next transition booster session will be about. And again, that's on August 14th, and that information will be coming out some more. So thanks everyone, we appreciate it. Jana asked if we're able to get the slide deck I don't know about that.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah, this is fine. Jenna, do I just send it to you and then we'll use it?
Yes, you can send it to me and I can send it out. Yep, that
Okay.
works.
Yep, I'll do that.
Okay. Thanks
All
so much.
Thanks,
Thank you, everybody.
Have a good night.
Night.
Bye.